Hello and welcome back to Mr. English Lab. My name is Laura, and I'm here to guide you on your journey to clear, confident, and natural English. If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button so you never miss a lesson. Your support truly helps this channel grow. All right, take a deep breath, relax, and let's begin today's session. On this quiet morning, I want you to imagine that you are walking beside me, listening to my voice as the sun slowly rises above a calm and peaceful city. And as we walk, I speak in simple English because I want you to feel safe, relaxed, and ready to learn. And I tell you that this story is not only a story, but also a journey, a gentle guide that will help you listen, understand, and speak English more naturally. And as we take our first steps, you hear the soft sound of my shoes touching the ground and maybe the low hum of a few early cars passing far away, and all around us the light is soft and warm, and I say to you, let's take this slow, let's breathe, and let's enjoy every moment together, because learning English does not need to be fast or stressful. It can be calm, it can be quiet, and it can be full of discovery. And you nod as we keep walking, and I begin to share a story from my morning, a story that may feel simple, but is full of emotion and small lessons, a story that will guide your ears and your voice. And I say, this morning, when I woke up, I felt a strange feeling inside me. Not a bad feeling, but a feeling that something new was coming, and I pause and let the silence sit with us for a moment, giving your mind time to hold the words, and I explain gently that strange feeling in English can be used when something feels new, different, or unexpected, and I encourage you to repeat it quietly to yourself, because speaking the phrase helps it stay in your memory. And as we continue walking, I tell you how the morning light entered my room in a soft, slow way, and I could see the dust in the air dancing like tiny stars, and I felt grateful for the peaceful start. And I say, grateful means you feel thankful. You feel happy for something good, and again I pause so you can try the word on your own. And as we turn a corner in this imaginary walk, I begin to explain that mornings can teach us many things about daily conversations, because morning conversations are often simple and gentle, and people usually speak slowly as they wake up, and that is why I want to start the story here at the beginning of the day. And I tell you that I went to the kitchen and made a cup of warm tea. And as I waited for the water to boil, I looked out the window and saw the quiet street, empty and still, and something inside me whispered that this day would bring a small challenge, not a big one, just something that would make me think and grow. And this is the moment in the story where curiosity begins, because I do not yet know what the challenge is, and you do not know either, but that is what keeps you listening, that small feeling of wondering what will happen next. And I remind you that wondering means thinking with curiosity, like a soft question inside your mind. And I take another slow breath as I sip my tea and tell you that sometimes we do not see the challenge clearly. Sometimes it appears slowly, like shadows at the edge of a quiet street. And as I finished my tea, I heard a gentle knock on my door, and it surprised me because it was too early for visitors. And I put down the cup, walked to the door, and opened it carefully, and on the other side stood my neighbor, a kind older man with soft eyes and a warm smile, and he said in a low voice, "Good morning, may I talk to you for a moment?" And I tell you that the phrase, "may I talk to you," is a polite and easy way to start a conversation in English, and I encourage you to repeat it slowly, with the same soft tone he used, and I step aside and let him in, and he tells me that he woke up early because he felt a little lonely, and he wanted someone to talk to. And as he sits down, I realize that this might be the challenge the morning brought to me, not a difficult or heavy challenge, but a human one, a gentle request to listen, to give time, to share space. And I sit across from him and say, "Of course, please sit," and he looks at me with a grateful expression, and I can see in his eyes that he simply wants company. and as he begins to speak, he tells me about a dream he had, a dream that made him think of his childhood. And I listen carefully because I know that listening is also part of communication, and sometimes people just need a quiet place to speak. And as he talks, I observe how slowly he forms his sentences. And I think that this is a good moment for you to learn something important. When you speak English slowly, you speak clearly, and people understand you better, and it is okay to take time. It is okay to breathe. It is okay to pause and think before you speak. And I mention that in English, we often say, take your time, which means you do not need to hurry. And once again, I invite you to say the phrase softly to yourself, and as my neighbor continues his story, he explains that his dream was about a quiet field from his childhood, a place he used to visit when he wanted peace, and his voice becomes calm. As he remembers the soft wind, the tall grass, and the warm sun, and while he speaks, I feel a sense of connection forming, a simple human bond created by conversation, and I want you to feel that too, because English is not just about words or grammar. It is also about connection, about sharing moments, sharing memories, and sharing emotions, and as he talks, I gently describe how the morning light shines on his face, making him look younger and more peaceful, and I realize that this simple conversation, is something precious, and I think of how many times in life we are too busy to listen to someone who needs a friend. And then he finishes his story and looks at me with soft eyes, and he asks, "Do you ever think about your childhood?" And his question surprises me, because I was not expecting to talk about my own memories, but I smile and say, "Yes, sometimes I do," and I start sharing a memory of my own, a memory of a small hill near my home where I used to sit and watch the clouds move across the sky, and as I describe the hill and the sky, I slow down my voice even more, and I tell you that when you describe something in English, it is helpful to use simple details like color, shape, and feeling. Because simple details create clear images, and clear images help the listener understand you better. And as I continue speaking, my neighbor smiles and nods, and I notice that he is more relaxed now. And I think that maybe the challenge of this morning was simply to give kindness, and sometimes kindness is as simple as giving someone 10 minutes of attention. And I want you to think about this too, because in English conversations, one of the most powerful things you can do is listen carefully and respond with warmth. And after a while, my neighbor stands up and thanks me for the conversation, and he says, "I feel better now," and I tell him, "I'm glad," which means I am happy that he feels better, and he slowly walks to the door, steps outside, and waves goodbye as the sunlight touches his face, and when the door closes behind him, I stand for a moment in the quiet room and breathe slowly, feeling the soft energy of the morning. And I begin to understand something important. Every day begins with small choices, and these choices shape the rest of the day. And I think about the power of a simple good morning, the power of a simple moment of care, and I tell you that this is your first takeaway of the story. Small conversations matter, and even a short conversation can change how someone feels. And as I walk back to the kitchen and pick up my warm cup of tea, I look out the window again, and the street is brighter now, more alive, more awake, and I realize that this small morning moment has already changed something inside me, and maybe it has changed something inside you too, because now you know a few new English phrases, and you have practiced listening to gentle conversation, and you have heard how simple English can create connection. And I take another slow sip of tea and smile at the day ahead, because the challenge of the morning is complete, the lesson is clear, and a new part of the story is waiting for us just beyond the door. And as I place the cup down and put on my shoes, I say to you softly, "Are you ready?" Because the day is long, the story is only beginning. And many more English moments are waiting for us as we step outside and continue this journey together. When I finally step outside and close the door behind me, I feel the cool morning air brush against my face, soft like a quiet welcome from the day, and I stand still for a moment, breathing slowly, letting the world settle around me. Because outside feels different from inside, outside feels bigger, louder, and full of stories waiting to unfold, and I want you to feel it with me, as if you are right here beside me, walking with me, learning with me, listening to every moment in simple, gentle English. And as I take my first steps down the small path that leads from my home to the street, I hear the distant sound of a bus engine, the soft ringing of a bicycle bell, and the cheerful chirping of birds hidden somewhere in the trees. And I tell you that these sounds are the beginning of daily life, and daily life is the best teacher of English because it is full of small conversations, small interactions, small moments where language becomes real, and as I walk, I say softly every day. Speaks, and I want you to repeat those words, because when you say them, you understand that language is always around you, always giving you chances to practice, even if you are alone, even if you are just listening, even if you are just watching the world move. And I slowly turn the corner and step onto the main street, and suddenly everything feels brighter, louder, more alive, because the city is waking up and people are starting their day, and I see a woman walking her dog, a man unlocking his small shop, a young student rushing with a backpack bouncing on his shoulders, and each of these people has a story. Each of them has a life, and each of them is using language to move through their day, and this is why I want you to walk with me, because here, in the middle of daily life, English comes alive, and as I pass the small shop on the corner, the shop owner, a man with friendly eyes and a warm smile, waves at me, and I wave back, and he calls out, "Good morning. Beautiful day, isn't it?" And I smile because this is a classic simple English phrase, one you will hear often, and I turn to you and explain. When someone says, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" they are using a tag question, which is a small question added to the end of a sentence to make conversation easy and friendly, and I invite you to repeat it softly. Beautiful day, isn't it? Taking your time, letting the rhythm become natural. Because simple sentences like this are the heartbeat of daily English, and as I walk past the shop, I continue down the street, feeling the sun getting warmer little by little, and I tell you that sometimes the best way to practice English is to imagine these moments. Imagine someone smiling at you. Imagine someone asking a simple question. Imagine how you would answer, and this is why I speak slowly, because I want to give your mind space to imagine the scene clearly, as if the world I describe is happening around you right now. And as we pass the coffee shop on the corner, I smell fresh bread and warm coffee drifting into the street, and the smell makes me feel calm and alive, and I think maybe it is a good time to step inside, not because I need coffee, but because a coffee shop is full of small conversations. And you and I can learn from each one, so I open the door and a small bell rings above my head, and I walk inside, feeling the warmth of the shop wrap around me like a soft blanket, and there is a quiet hum of people talking, not loudly, but softly, like bees buzzing around a field of flowers, and I join the short line at the counter, and while I wait, I listen to the conversations around me, because listening is the first step to speaking naturally. And on my left, I hear a young woman say to her friend, "I didn't sleep well last night," and I turn to you and explain that this is a very common way to tell someone you had trouble sleeping, and I pause so you can repeat it gently, feeling how the words move through your mouth. Because simple sentences like these are used every day, and to my right, I hear a man say into his phone, "I'll be there in 10 minutes, and I explain that "I'll be there" is short for "I will be there," and people use it all the time when they are meeting someone, and again I pause, letting the phrase rest on your tongue, because once you can say a phrase smoothly, you can use it naturally. And now it is my turn at the counter, and the barista, A young man with kind eyes and a tired smile looks at me and says, "Good morning, what can I get for you?" And I explain that this question is the standard way to ask a customer what they want to order, and I take a slow breath and answer simply, "Just a tea, please," because I want to show you that English does not need to be complicated to be polite, and the barista nods and starts preparing the tea. And while he works, I think about how each small conversation in the shop is a lesson, a chance for your ears to become more familiar with real English, and I turn to you and say softly, "Daily English is simple English," because most conversations in real life are short, clear, and friendly, and when the barista hands me the warm cup, he says, "Here you go," which is another common phrase that people use when giving something, and I explain this phrase to you and encourage you to say it gently, just to feel how natural it sounds, and I take the tea and find a quiet seat by the window, where the sunlight creates a warm, golden glow on the small wooden table, and I sit down and take a slow sip, feeling the warmth spread through my body, and as I look outside, I see people walking, talking, waiting for buses, carrying bags, opening shops, and I realize that the city itself feels like a giant conversation, and I want to understand it, learn from it, and share it with you. Because each moment in the city teaches us something about how people live, how people speak, and how people connect, and while I drink my tea, I begin to think about something deeper. Sometimes the hardest part of learning English is not the grammar or the vocabulary, but the fear of speaking, the worry of making mistakes, the worry that people might not understand. And I want to tell you gently that mistakes are part of learning, and mistakes are signs of progress. Because every mistake means you tried, and trying is the most important step. And I tell you that when a baby learns to walk, they fall many times, but nobody laughs or judges, because falling is part of walking, and in the same way, mistakes are part of speaking. And you should feel proud every time you try, every time you speak even one word, every time you listen to English and try to understand. And as I sit in the coffee shop, I notice a small notebook on the table next to me, left behind by someone who is already gone. And curiosity pulls me closer, and I reach out and open it, just to look, and inside I find small notes written in simple English, notes that look like personal reminders. Buy milk. Call mom. Finish project. Water plants, and I smile because this notebook is another reminder of how simple English can be, and I think of how many people believe they need big, complex vocabulary to sound fluent, but the truth is that life is made of simple words, simple sentences, simple thoughts, and when you master the simple things, everything else becomes easier. And I close the notebook and place it carefully back where I found it, and I take another slow sip of tea and think about how life gives us small lessons when we pay attention, and maybe this forgotten notebook is my lesson for the morning. Simplicity is powerful, and simple English can tell big stories. And as I look outside, I see a bus stopping at the corner, and people begin to climb on. And I suddenly feel that the next part of the day wants to happen there, on that bus, with new faces, new voices, new conversations, and maybe even a new challenge. And I gather my things, stand up slowly, and walk toward the door, and as I step outside, the sun feels warmer now, brighter, more awake, and I hear the bus driver saying, "Next stop, Central Park," and the sound of his voice feels like an invitation. So I walk to the bus, climb on, and take a seat near the window. And as the bus begins to move, I look around and see people lost in their own worlds. A young woman reading a book, an older man looking out the window with a peaceful expression, a teenager tapping their foot softly to music only they can hear, and I tell you that this bus is like a small moving story, and each person is a character, and each character carries a piece of daily English inside them. And as the bus rolls down the street, I realize that today, My challenge is to observe, to listen, and to learn from the world around me, and I want you to do the same, because English becomes easier when you see it in real life, when you connect it to real moments, real faces, and real emotions, and as the bus continues its journey, I feel a calm excitement inside me, like the day is slowly opening its hand to show something new, something gentle, something meaningful, and I turn to you and say softly, every morning opens a door, because today is not just another day. And this story is not just another story. It is a journey we are taking together, step by step, scene by scene, conversation by conversation, and as the bus gets closer to the next stop, the sunlight touches my face through the window, warm and soft like a quiet promise. And I know that the next part of the day will bring another realization, another moment of connection, another small lesson hidden in the flow of daily life, and I am ready, and I hope you are ready too, because the story is only beginning. And many more English moments are waiting for us ahead. As the bus moves deeper into the city, I sit quietly by the window with the soft sunlight warming my cheek, and I watch the world passing by in slow motion, as if the bus is a small moving theater and every street outside is part of a gentle play made only for us. And I tell you, as we continue this journey together, that every bus ride carries stories, voices, emotions, and small pieces of language that slowly teach you how people speak in real life. And as I sit there, feeling the bus gently shake beneath me, I turn to you softly and say, just listen for a moment, because listening is the first step to understanding any language, and in that quiet moment, you can hear the soft murmur of conversations blending together like a calm river of voices, and the hum of the engine rumbling under our feet, and the faint sound of the turning wheels brushing against the road. And for a small moment, it feels like the whole bus is breathing, not in a loud or busy way, but in a slow, peaceful rhythm that matches your own breath, and I close my eyes for just a second, letting the sounds wash over me, and then I open them again as a new voice rises above the others, a friendly, curious voice, the voice of a young boy sitting 2 seats in front of me, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with bright eyes and a soft excitement in his tone as he tugs gently on his mother's sleeve and says, "Mom, are we almost there?" And I smile because this is a common sentence, a simple question you will hear many times, especially from children. And I repeat it slowly for you. Are we almost there? And I explain gently that this question is used when someone wants to know how much longer a trip will take, and I encourage you to say it too, slowly and clearly, and the mother smiles at him and answers in a calm, warm voice, "Yes, almost." Just a few more minutes, and I turn to you again and say that the phrase, "just a few more minutes," is a soft and friendly way to tell someone to wait, and I let the words float gently so you can repeat them, and as the boy calms down and rests his head on the window, I let my eyes drift to the other side of the bus, where a young woman is speaking to her friend, holding her phone in one hand and gesturing with the other, and she says, "I'm trying my best," her voice both tired and hopeful. And I repeat the phrase softly for you, because it is an important one, a simple sentence full of emotion, used when someone is working hard, even if things are difficult, and I imagine how this phrase might feel in your own life, and I encourage you to say it quietly. I'm trying my best, and I tell you that English is full of small emotional sentences like this, sentences that carry feelings more than complicated grammar, and when you speak them, you sound more natural, more human, more connected to the world around you, and the bus slows down a little as it approaches a red light, and outside I see a street filled with small shops, bright signs, and people starting their morning routines, and I realize something important. Every person outside, every person inside the bus is living their own story, and inside each story there is language, there are conversations, and each conversation is a chance for someone to understand or be understood. And this is why learning English is not just about studying words, it is about feeling what those words mean. And as the bus begins to move again, I hear another voice behind me, a deep voice, maybe belonging to an older man, speaking softly into a phone, saying, "Don't worry, I'll handle it." And I pause to tell you that this phrase is useful when you want to reassure someone, when you want to take responsibility for a problem. And again, I encourage you to repeat it slowly, letting the meaning rest inside you. And I can tell from the tone of his voice that he truly wants to help the person he is talking to, and it reminds me that communication is not only about speaking, it is also about supporting, comforting, and being present for someone else with simple, honest words. And the bus passes the park where trees stand tall and green, and the sunlight shines through the leaves, making soft patterns on the ground. And I look at the park and imagine how many conversations take place there every day, children playing, friends laughing, joggers greeting each other with simple phrases like, "Good morning," or "How's it going?" And I explain these phrases to you as the bus rolls on, telling you that "how's it going" is a friendly, casual way to ask someone how they are, and I ask you to whisper it softly, slowly, so it becomes part of your speaking memory. And as I watch the trees fade behind us, I hear a small cough beside me, gentle but noticeable. And I turn to see a woman in her early 20s holding a stack of papers and looking slightly nervous, and she makes eye contact with me for a second and then looks away in a shy, uncertain way, and after a moment, she gathers the courage to speak and asks me softly, "Excuse me, is this bus going to Central Station?" And I smile warmly and answer, "Yes, it is." And I turn to you and tell you that "excuse me" is one of the most useful phrases in English, because you can use it to ask a question, to get someone's attention, or to move past someone politely. And I encourage you to say it slowly, feeling the gentle politeness inside the words. And the woman nods and thanks me. And I tell you that when someone says "thank you," a simple "you're welcome" or "no problem" is enough. Small words, but meaningful. And I think about how many people fear speaking English in real situations, but sometimes all you need is a simple phrase and a small moment of courage. And as the woman relaxes and looks out the window, the bus driver speaks again, his voice calm and steady as he says, "Next stop, Maple Avenue." And hearing his voice makes me think about how important clarity is when speaking. And I tell you that bus drivers, announcers, and public speakers often speak in a clear and slow way. And listening to them can help train your ear for natural English rhythm. And as the bus continues down its long path, I feel a small shift in the air. Not a big change, but something subtle, something soft, like a quiet emotional wave that moves through the bus. And I realize it comes from a conversation happening behind me, where two friends are speaking in low voices, and one of them says, "I'm really worried," with a trembling tone that makes the words feel heavy. And I explain to you gently that the word "worried" carries emotion, and sometimes people slow down when saying emotional words because the feelings inside them make the sentence softer. And the friend answers, "It's okay, you're not alone." And I feel something warm inside my chest because these simple English words carry comfort, connection, and support. And I repeat the phrase for you slowly, "You're not alone," because humans use language not only to exchange information, but also to show love, care, and presence. And the bus continues rolling through the streets, passing schools, bakeries, small parks, and long lines of cars waiting at red lights. And with every movement, with every sound, with every voice, I feel myself learning something new about English. Something simple but deep. Real English is not spoken like a textbook. It is spoken with emotion, with pauses, with mistakes, with breath, with small breaks and natural rhythm. And I want you to feel this too. Because once you understand the rhythm of daily English, speaking becomes easier, more natural, more confident, and as the bus goes over a small bridge, I look down and see the river flowing gently beneath us, and the water glitters in the sunlight like tiny silver stars, and I feel that the river is like language, always moving, always flowing, always changing shape but never stopping, and I turn to you and share this thought because I believe it deeply. Learning a language is not a race, it is a journey, a moving river. And you are already flowing with it right now, simply by listening and feeling the story, and as the bus approaches a busy part of the city, more people climb on, filling the seats, and the bus becomes a little louder, a little warmer, and I hear new voices mixing with the old ones, and from the front I hear someone say, "Excuse me, can I sit here?" And I use this moment to teach you gently that this is the polite way to ask for a seat, simple, soft, friendly, and the person responds, "Sure, go ahead." And I invite you to repeat both phrases softly, because they are useful in daily situations, and as the bus becomes full, I hear the rustling of bags, the tapping of shoes, the soft laughter of two students sharing a joke, and each sound adds to the gentle story of the day, and I notice that the woman who asked me earlier about Central Station is now reading one of her papers with deep focus, and I wonder what her day will be like, what challenges she will face, what moments of courage she will need. And in that moment, I understand something important about communication. We speak not only to express ourselves, but also to understand others. And while I sit on the bus surrounded by all these small stories, I feel grateful to share this moment with you, and I hope you feel the same gentle connection because even though you and I are not on the same bus in real life, you are here in this story, walking through it with me, learning with me, listening with me, and this shared journey is something meaningful, something human, something full of small lessons and soft discoveries, and as the bus slows down again, the driver calls out, "Next stop, Central Station," and a quiet excitement runs through me, because I know the next part of our day is about to begin, and I take a slow breath, feel the gentle motion of the bus one last time, and prepare to step off into the bright, living world outside, where more English moments, more voices, and more stories are waiting for us just beyond the doors. When the bus finally comes to a stop in front of Central Station, I stand up slowly, letting the movement of the other passengers flow around me like a soft river of human motion, and I step down onto the solid ground, feeling the warm sunlight on my face again and hearing the large, echoing sounds of the station rising all around us, and I want you to walk with me here, step by step, because Central Station is not just a place for trains and buses, it is a place full of voices, full of small conversations, full of moments that help you understand real English as it is spoken by people living their daily lives. And as we approach the large glass doors, they slide open with a soft hiss. And suddenly we are inside a huge hall full of people moving in different directions, each with a purpose, each with a destination, each carrying their own story. And I pause for a moment so you can take in the atmosphere with your imagination. Hearing the footsteps hitting the marble floor, the rolling wheels of suitcases, the distant announcements echoing across the hall, and the soft mixture of laughter, questions, goodbyes, and greetings that fill the air like a living soundtrack. And I look around at the colorful signs, the high ceilings, the bright sunlight shining through the windows, and I feel that this place, with all its noise and movement, is a perfect classroom for learning English, because here, people speak naturally, without thinking too much about grammar, and you can hear English used in real, simple, everyday ways. And as we walk deeper into the station, I notice a young couple standing near a map on the wall, and the man is pointing at something while the woman says, "Wait, I don't think that's the right platform." And I smile because this is a useful sentence, simple and clear, and I repeat it for you softly. I don't think that's the right platform, and I explain that the phrase, I don't think, is often used in English to express gentle disagreement, a soft way to say you believe something might be wrong, and I encourage you to say it slowly, letting it settle in your memory. And as they continue discussing the map, I hear the man say, let's just ask someone, and I turn to you and tell you that let's is short for let us, and people use it all the time when making suggestions, and I invite you to repeat it gently, because it is one of the most common ways to start action in English, and we move on, walking through the main hall where the ceiling is so high it feels like the sky is resting just above it, and the air smells faintly of coffee from the cafe on the corner, and the warm scent of baked bread from a small bakery near the ticket counters, and I turn toward the bakery. Not because I am hungry, but because bakeries are places where people speak simple, friendly English, and I step inside for a moment, hearing the soft ringing of the doorbell, and inside the bakery I see a woman behind the counter arranging fresh pastries, and a young man at the front ordering something, and he says, "Can I have one chocolate croissant, please?" And his voice is friendly and relaxed, and I smile because this is the perfect example of a simple, polite request, and I repeat it slowly for you. Can I have, please? And I explain that this is one of the easiest and most natural ways to order food or ask for something in daily English, and I encourage you to try it softly, imagining you are ordering something delicious and the bakery worker answers, "Sure. Anything else?" And I tell you that anything else is another useful phrase because you will hear it often when shopping, and I translate the moment into a soft teaching point before stepping back out into the hall again, where the echo of footsteps fills the air like falling rain, and as we continue walking, I notice a tall digital board full of moving letters and numbers, showing train arrivals and departures. And beneath it I see a small group of travelers standing together, looking tired but excited, and one of them says, "We need to hurry. The train leaves in 10 minutes, and I pause to explain that "we need to hurry" is a phrase used when time is short, and I tell you to repeat it slowly so it becomes part of your natural speaking rhythm. And as we move further, I begin to notice something interesting. Every corner of the station has its own mood, its own story, its own voices. And near the benches a young woman is sitting with her suitcase, talking on the phone in a calm, steady voice, saying, "I'm waiting at the station. Where are you?" And I explain that this sentence is very common, especially when people meet in crowded places, and I let you repeat it gently, imagining you are waiting for someone too, and as she continues her call, she says, "Take your time, I'm not in a hurry," and I smile because we practiced "take your time" earlier in the story. And here it appears again in a real situation, reminding you that the phrases you learn are not isolated pieces of language. They appear everywhere, in many moments, spoken by many people, and as we turn toward the large open area near the ticket machines, I see a small problem unfolding, a kind of gentle challenge that life sometimes brings, and this challenge gives us another chance to learn, and in front of one of the machines stands an older woman holding a ticket in her hand, looking lost and confused. And she presses a button on the machine, but nothing happens, and she sighs softly and steps back, and without thinking too much, I approach her with a kind smile, and she looks up at me with hopeful eyes and says, "Excuse me, can you help me?" And I turn to you and say that this phrase is one of the most important in English, and you should practice it because it opens the door to receiving help, and I slowly repeat the sentence for you, and then I answer the woman gently, "Of course. What do you need?" And she explains, in a soft and slightly embarrassed voice, that the machine will not accept her ticket, and I take a closer look and realize that she is using the wrong machine, and I point gently to the correct one behind her and say, "You can use that machine instead." And she smiles with relief and says, "Oh, thank you so much." And I respond, "You're welcome." feeling a warm sense of kindness inside me, and I turn to you and explain that helping someone, even in a small way, can create connection and meaning, and that small conversations like this are excellent practice for your English because they are simple, clear, and full of real human emotions. And as the woman begins using the correct machine, I step back and observe the station again, taking in the tall ceiling, the moving crowds, the clicking sound of electronic gates opening and closing, and I realize something important. Stations are places of beginnings and endings, and English is full of words for beginnings and endings, moments of meeting and moments of parting, and as I look to my right, I see a man hugging his friend tightly while saying, "Take care, okay?" And I point out to you how soft and emotional those words feel. And I explain that take care is a warm way to say goodbye, used when you want someone to be safe and well, and I let you repeat it gently so it becomes part of your emotional vocabulary. And then, as we continue walking, we pass a small bookstore tucked in a quiet corner of the station, and something inside me feels pulled toward it, not by force, but by curiosity, and I step inside, breathing in the smell of old paper and ink. And I see a young clerk standing behind the counter with a bright smile, and she greets me with a friendly, "Hi, let me know if you need help finding anything," and I tell you that this is a standard greeting in stores, and you will hear it often, and I encourage you to say it softly, imagining you work in a store. And after a moment of looking at the shelves, I thank the clerk and step back out into the main hall, where the busy life of the station continues moving smoothly around us, like a giant heart beating in slow rhythm, full of energy, but also filled with gentle moments if you know where to look. And I walk toward the center of the hall where a large fountain stands, its water flowing in soft streams, and people sit around it waiting for their trains, lost in their own thoughts, and I sit down on the edge of the fountain for a moment, feeling the cool stone beneath me, and I tell you something important. Learning English is not just about repeating words. It is about paying attention, about observing how people speak, about noticing the small details, about hearing emotion in a simple phrase, and about feeling the gentle flow of language around you, just like the flow of water in the fountain beside us. And as I watch the water and listen to the hum of voices, I realize the next part of our day is calling us. A small moment of discovery, something just around the corner, something waiting quietly in the flow of the station, and I stand up slowly, ready to follow the next piece of the story, and I ask you softly, are you ready to keep going? Because the day is far from over, and many more voices, conversations, and gentle lessons are waiting for us beyond the next doorway, ready to guide you deeper into the world of natural, simple, everyday English. When we finally leave the bright and echoing space of Central Station and step through the tall glass doors into the open city streets, the world outside feels completely different, as if the air itself has a new rhythm, a new energy, a new voice waiting to speak to us. And I pause for a moment right outside the station entrance, standing still as people walk past on both sides, moving with purpose, with direction, with their own stories flowing silently beside ours, and I turn to you and say, softly, take a deep breath, because sometimes before we step into a new place, a new scene, or a new challenge, we need to feel grounded, calm, and ready to listen, and as we breathe together, the sound of the city slowly rises around us, the distant honking of cars, the soft rumble of a passing tram, the laughter of a group of friends walking by, the clicking footsteps of a businesswoman rushing to a meeting, and the slow hum of conversation floating through the air like warm wind. And I want you to hear all of this with your imagination, because these sounds help you understand how natural English feels in real life, not in a classroom, not in a textbook, but here, in the middle of a living, breathing city. And as we begin walking forward, I tell you that every step we take is a chance to notice English in small, simple forms, because daily English is all around us like tiny glowing lights waiting to be collected. And as we cross the street, I hear a teenager calling to his friend, "Wait up," and I smile because wait up is a friendly, informal way of saying wait for me, and I repeat it for you slowly and invite you to whisper it too, because real English often comes from moments like this. Quick, short, emotional phrases spoken without thinking, and as we continue walking, I notice a woman standing near a bus stop, talking on her phone in a gentle but stressed voice, saying, "I'm running late, but I'm on my way," and I explain to you softly that "I'm running late" is a common phrase people use when they are behind schedule, when time is moving faster than they expected, and I pause so you can feel the rhythm of it, because speaking naturally is not only about knowing words, but about feeling the flow of the sentence inside your breath. And while she talks, a cool breeze passes by, brushing our faces as if the day itself wants to greet us, and I look at the tall buildings rising around us, reflecting the sunlight like giant mirrors. And I feel small but alive. And I tell you that city streets always carry a certain magic, a mix of movement and mystery, as if every corner is holding a new story, a new lesson, a new chance to hear or speak something meaningful. And as we walk further, I notice a small cafe on the corner with tables outside and a soft umbrella shading the people sitting there, and something pulls me toward it, not because I need another drink, but because places like this are full of human language, full of simple sentences, polite exchanges, friendly greetings, and tiny pieces of everyday English that help you grow naturally. So we move toward the cafe and take a seat at one of the small tables, and the chair feels cool under me as I settle in and watch the people around us. And after a moment, a server comes to our table with a warm, welcoming smile and says, "Hi there, what can I get for you today?" And I turn to you and explain gently that this is a typical greeting in restaurants and cafes, and I repeat the sentence slowly so you can say it too, because practicing simple service phrases helps you understand English in many real situations. And I answer the server softly, "Just water for now, thank you," keeping my sentence clear and simple so you can follow the natural tone. And as the server walks away, I look around and listen to the conversations around us, not to intrude, but because each little voice teaches us something small but important. And to our left, I hear two friends chatting, one saying, "You won't believe what happened yesterday," and immediately I recognize this as a classic way to start a story, a way to create curiosity, and I lean toward you and explain that people often use this phrase to introduce surprising news. And I slow it down for you so you can feel how the sentence rises a little at the end, like a hook pulling the listener closer, and I encourage you to repeat it gently because it is a beautiful tool for telling stories. And at the table to our right, a man in a blue jacket is speaking to the server as she brings him his order, and he says, "This looks great, thank you," and I point out to you that this simple compliment is a natural part of daily English. And I let you repeat it softly so you can use it later when you want to be polite and appreciative. And soon the server returns to our table with a glass of water, placing it gently in front of me and saying, "Here you go, just like we practiced before." And I smile and thank her again, and as I take a slow sip, I tell you that every simple moment like this is a chance to grow confident with everyday English, because confidence is not built from big words, but from many small successes, many small sentences spoken softly, calmly, and naturally over time. And while we sit there, the wind carries the smell of warm bread and fresh fruit from a nearby market, and I feel curious about it. So after finishing my water, I stand up and say softly, "Let's take a walk," because the story still wants to move, and the day still has many lessons to show us, and we walk toward the small open-air market with colorful stalls full of fruits, vegetables, flowers, and small handmade things, and the market feels alive, full of voices, full of energy, full of simple English exchanges between sellers and customers, and as we move through the first row of stalls, I hear a friendly voice calling out, "Fresh apples. Try one for free," and I explain gently that "try one for free" is a common phrase in markets when sellers want you to taste something without paying, and I encourage you to say it softly, imagining you are the one offering the apples, and at the next stall, a woman with bright eyes and a warm smile is selling small jars of honey, and she says to a customer, "This one is my favorite. It's very smooth," and I repeat this phrase to you with a smile because simple descriptive words like smooth, soft, and sweet help you speak about things in a natural, simple way, and I encourage you to try the sentence yourself, letting the words fall gently from your mouth, and at another stall, a customer asks, "Do you have anything cheaper?" And I explain that this is a common and polite way to ask for a lower price, and I say it slowly for you so you can remember it, and as we continue walking through the market, I notice a little boy holding his mother's hand, pointing excitedly at a basket of oranges and saying, "Look, Mommy, they're so big," and I smile because children speak simple, clear English full of emotion. And listening to them can help you understand natural language rhythm. And I tell you softly that describing things with "so big," "so small," "so nice," "so good" is one of the simplest ways to express feelings in English. And you do not need complicated vocabulary to communicate your emotions. And as we move further, we reach the end of the market where a small flower stall sits quietly under the shade of a tree, and the flowers are bright and colorful, and an older woman sits behind them with gentle eyes and a warm smile. And something about her calm presence makes me slow down, and as we approach her stall, she looks up, smiles kindly, and says, "Beautiful day, isn't it?" repeating the same phrase we heard earlier in the morning, and I feel a soft warmth inside because this phrase keeps appearing throughout the day, connecting each part of our journey like a quiet thread, and I explain again to you that tag questions like, "Isn't it?" "Don't you?" and "Aren't we?" are simple ways to keep conversations friendly and open, and I invite you to whisper the phrase softly, feeling the rhythm of natural English in your mouth as you speak, and as I look at the flowers and choose a single small one to buy, I hand the woman a few coins, and she gives me the flower and says, "Thank you, dear," in a soft, kind voice, and I feel a gentle peace inside me, the kind of peace that comes from human kindness, from small interactions, from simple language spoken with warmth and sincerity. And as we walk away from the market and step onto a quieter street, the city suddenly feels calmer, slower, softer, as if the noise has taken a break and the world wants us to listen to something more subtle, something deeper, something inside ourselves. And I turn to you and say gently, "Every small moment today has taught us something," and I begin listing softly, not as bullet points, but as flowing thoughts inside the same stream of narration. Lessons about simple phrases, lessons about polite language, lessons about describing things, lessons about emotion and voice, lessons about daily English spoken by real people in real situations. And I tell you that these small lessons build your confidence, piece by piece, moment by moment, and each time you listen, each time you repeat a phrase, each time you imagine yourself in these scenes, you become just a little more fluent, a little more natural, a little more connected to the language. And as we keep walking down the quiet street, the buildings around us cast long, soft shadows, and I realize the day is gently moving toward its next scene, its next conversation, its next discovery, and I feel ready. And I hope you feel ready too. because the story is still unfolding and many more English moments, emotional, simple, and full of meaning, are waiting for us just ahead, ready to be explored one gentle step at a time. As we continue walking down the quiet street, leaving the colorful market behind us and stepping into a softer part of the city, I begin to notice the world changing around us, becoming calmer with every step. As if the noise of the day is slowly pulling away and giving us space to think and breathe. And as we walk, I point to a building on the corner, a tall stone building with large windows, old doors, and soft, warm light shining through the glass, and I smile and say, "Let's go inside." Because this place, this building, is the city's public library, a place full of stories, full of simple voices, full of quiet conversations that help us learn English in a different way, not through noise or speed, but through calm observation. And as we push the heavy wooden door open, the world changes again, becoming still and peaceful, and the warm smell of books wraps around us like a soft blanket. And I pause there in the doorway so you can feel the silence, the gentle hush of pages turning, the quiet footsteps on the carpet, and the soft, low voices of people talking in careful whispers. And I tell you that libraries are wonderful places for language learners because people speak slowly here, they speak clearly, and they speak with calm energy. And as we walk inside, a librarian sitting behind the front desk looks up and gives us a warm, friendly smile, saying, "Good afternoon. How can I help you?" And I stop for a moment to explain that this question is one of the most common polite greetings in service places, and I say it again slowly so you can hear every sound, and then I respond to her softly, "We're just looking around, thank you." Using a simple phrase you can use in any store or public place when you don't need anything specific, and she nods with a gentle smile and returns to her work. And we walk past shelves filled with books in many colors and sizes, each book holding a story, each story holding emotions, and as we move through the aisles, I hear a teenager show a book to her friend and say, "You should read this, it's really good," and I smile because this phrase is used so often in English, and I take a moment to explain that "you should" is a soft way to give advice, a friendly suggestion. And I gently encourage you to repeat it so it becomes natural in your own voice. And as we walk deeper inside the library, we arrive at a reading area with big wooden tables and soft lamps that give the room a warm glow, and we take a seat at one of the tables where a few people are quietly studying, and I whisper to you that places like this teach you a different kind of English, a quiet English, an English used for thinking, reflecting, understanding, and I show you how people speak here in soft, short sentences, because the silence helps them choose their words carefully. And at the table next to us, I hear a young man whisper to his study partner, "Can you explain this part to me?" And I tell you softly that this is a helpful phrase when you want someone to make something clearer, and I say it again slowly so you can practice it. And as they talk quietly, I listen to their tone, gentle and patient, and I explain that speaking softly is not only about volume, it's also about respect, calmness, connection, and clear communication. And as we sit there, a librarian approaches a person at the far end of the room and whispers, "Excuse me, would you mind keeping your voice down?" And I pause because this is another beautiful, polite phrase, one used when you need someone to do something without sounding rude, and I take a moment to teach it to you, slowly, gently, because phrases like, "Would you mind?" are powerful tools for polite communication. And as the quiet settles around us again, I stand up and walk toward a shelf filled with travel books, and I pull one out and open it, letting you see the colorful pictures inside. And as I flip through the pages, I tell you softly that reading, even simple reading, even slow reading, helps you absorb the rhythm of English, the shape of sentences, the emotional tone hidden inside the words, and I encourage you to imagine yourself reading out loud. Slowly, clearly, as if you are telling a story to a close friend, because storytelling makes language feel alive, and after a moment of turning pages, I close the book gently and return it to the shelf, and we walk to another section of the library. The children's corner, a bright and colorful space filled with small chairs, soft carpets, and picture books, and inside this space sits a group of small children listening to a woman who is reading a storybook to them, her voice light and animated, rising and falling with emotion, and I whisper to you that listening to children's stories is one of the best ways to learn simple English, because the language is clear, the sentences are short, and the emotions are strong, and we stand there quietly for a moment, watching the woman point to pictures as she reads, and the children laugh softly, and one of them raises his hand and asks, "What happens next?" And I smile because this question is perfect for storytelling, and I repeat it for you so you can feel how natural it sounds, and the woman answers with a warm smile, "You'll see, just wait." And I explain that phrases like, "you'll see," are soft promises inside a story, used to keep the listener curious. And we leave the children's section and step into a hallway lined with quiet study rooms, each room with a glass window, and inside them people sit alone or in pairs, working, reading, writing, thinking, and as we pass one room, I notice a young woman practicing English with a tutor. And I hear her say, "Can you say that again?" in a careful but hopeful voice, and I explain to you that this phrase is essential when learning English because it helps you stay engaged in the conversation instead of feeling lost. And I repeat it slowly so you can hear every syllable, and the tutor answers her gently, "Of course, take your time," and I smile because this simple phrase appears again, reminding us how important patience is in communication and in learning. And as we continue walking, I tell you softly that libraries teach you something more than English. They teach you to slow down, to breathe, to listen, to speak calmly, and to reflect. And I explain that reflection is a part of fluency because fluency is not speed. Fluency is comfort. Fluency is connection. Fluency is the ability to express yourself with calm confidence, and as we reach the far end of the library, we find a small balcony overlooking the city, and I push the door open and step outside with you, breathing in the cool fresh air as the city stretches out before us like a giant living map, and I lean against the railing and tell you quietly that sometimes learning English can feel overwhelming, but your progress today, listening, imagining, repeating, understanding is real. It is growing inside you with every moment, every sentence, every breath, and I let a soft silence settle in the air between us before saying gently, "You're doing well," because you need to hear that, you deserve to hear that, and I want you to believe it deeply, and after a final quiet moment on the balcony, I turn to you and say softly, "Let's keep going, because the day is not over yet. The story is still moving, and beyond the library doors, many more moments of simple, emotional, everyday English are waiting for us, ready to guide you toward greater fluency, one gentle step at a time." When we step out of the quiet, peaceful library and walk back into the open air of the city, the sunlight feels a little warmer. The breeze feels a little softer, and I sense that the day is gently guiding us toward a new place, a new moment, a new space where English will speak to us in a different way, and as we follow the small path leading away from the library, we soon arrive at the entrance of a large public park, a place full of green grass, tall trees, long walking paths, and the kind of calm energy that makes people breathe a little slower and smile a little more easily, and I turn to you with a small smile and say, "Let's take a walk through the park," because parks are full of simple conversations, soft emotions, and everyday English spoken in the most natural way, and as we step inside, the sound of leaves rustling above us mixes with the laughter of children playing somewhere in the distance, and I want you to imagine the sunlight dancing on the grass, the shadows of branches moving gently on the ground, and the soft hum of life all around us, because this moment, this scene, helps you feel the rhythm of calm English, the kind of English that is spoken slowly, clearly, and with warm connection. As we walk along the path, I notice a young couple sitting on a wooden bench, sharing a quiet conversation, and the woman says, "I really needed this break," and I smile because this simple sentence is something you will hear often in English-speaking places. And I explain to you that it means someone needed to rest, to breathe, to pause from a busy day, and I repeat it softly so you can feel the natural tone of the phrase. And then the man replies, "Yeah, same here," and I show you how people often use short, casual answers like, "Yeah, same here," to connect with someone's feeling. And as we continue walking, we pass a group of children running across the grass while their teacher calls out, "Stay together, please." And I tell you that this kind of gentle instruction is part of everyday English too, and it teaches you how people communicate when they need others to listen and follow. And I repeat the phrase for you so you can practice the soft but clear tone of it. A few steps later, we approach a small pond where a man is throwing pieces of bread to a group of ducks, and beside him sits an older woman with a cane, watching with a warm smile. And as we walk by, she looks at us and says in a friendly voice, "Lovely day, isn't it?" And I pause for a moment because this simple tag question appears again and again in the real world, always as a way to start a friendly conversation, and I repeat it slowly, helping you feel the rising tone at the end, and I explain gently that tag questions are a beautiful way to connect with people, especially strangers, because they invite agreement and make conversations feel easy and natural. As we continue down the winding path, we pass a small group of joggers taking a break near a tree, and one of them says, "I need water. I'm exhausted," and I take a moment to show you that "I'm exhausted" means I'm very tired. And it's a simple way to express strong emotion without using difficult vocabulary, and I let you whisper it softly so it becomes part of your speaking memory. A few steps later, we walk past a man sitting on the grass with his laptop, and he looks frustrated as he says into his phone, "The connection keeps dropping," and I explain that this phrase, "keeps dropping," is used when something happens again and again. And I repeat it slowly so you can feel the rhythm of repeated action in English. As we keep moving along the path, the trees above us become taller, creating a cool shade, and the wind passes through the leaves in a soft whisper, and we come across a woman sitting on a blanket with her little dog beside her. And the dog suddenly jumps up and runs toward a butterfly, and the woman laughs gently and calls out, "Come back here," and I smile as I explain that people often use short commands with their pets, and these small sentences, "come back," "stay," "wait," are part of simple daily English too. A few moments later, we reach a small wooden bridge crossing over a narrow stream, and we stop there for a moment, leaning against the railing, watching the water move slowly under us, and the calm movement of the water makes the whole world feel soft and peaceful. And I turn to you and say softly, "This is a good moment to breathe," because learning English is not only about listening, repeating, or understanding. It's about staying calm, staying open, and letting the language settle naturally inside you. And we stand there quietly for a moment, listening to the soft sound of water flowing under the bridge, and I remind you gently that fluency grows in moments like this, when your mind is calm, when your heart is open, and when you allow yourself to feel the rhythm of language rather than force it. After a slow breath, we continue walking across the bridge and onto a small hill that leads to an open grassy area where people are sitting, lying, reading, chatting, and enjoying the sunshine. And as we walk past a family having a picnic, I hear the father say, "Could you pass me the juice?" And I smile because this polite request is so common in daily life. And I repeat it for you, "Could you pass me?" explaining that this structure is used all the time at home, at the table in friendly settings, and it's important for natural conversation. A little further ahead, we see two older men sitting on a bench, talking slowly, and one of them says, "I haven't seen you in a while," and I stop for a moment to explain gently that this is a warm greeting used when you meet someone you haven't seen for some time. And I invite you to practice it quietly because it helps you express connection and warmth. The other man replies, "Yeah, it's been a busy few weeks," and I explain that people often use this simple phrase to talk about their recent lives without giving too many details, and I help you feel the relaxed tone of it. As we continue walking past them, the path curves toward a small outdoor cafe inside the park, with a few wooden tables and chairs placed under large umbrellas, and I feel drawn to the quiet, relaxed atmosphere of the place, so I say softly, "Let's stop here for a moment," and we take a seat at one of the tables where we can watch the park life around us, and a server walks over with a gentle smile and asks, "What can I get for you?" And I explain again that this simple question is one of the foundations of everyday English, and I answer softly, "Just a tea, please," using simple language for you to follow, and as we wait, we listen to the gentle conversations around us, the soft laughter of a group of friends, the quiet talk of a mother and her teenage daughter, the relaxed voices of two people discussing their weekend plans, and I point out how natural their speech sounds, how simple and soft and unforced their sentences are. And I remind you gently that fluency is not about big, fancy words, but about simple words spoken with clarity and comfort. When the server returns with the tea, she sets it down with a warm smile and says, "Here you go," and I smile because this friendly phrase follows us everywhere today, reminding us of the kindness inside simple English, and I thank her softly before taking a slow sip, feeling the warmth of the cup in my hands, and I turn to you and say quietly that the day has already brought us many lessons from the station, the market, the library, and now the park, and each lesson is shaping your confidence, helping you feel more natural with the language, and as we finish the tea and stand up to continue walking, I tell you that there is still more waiting ahead, more moments, more conversations, more gentle English hidden inside the world around us. And as we leave the cafe and walk toward the far exit of the park, the sunlight falling behind the trees paints the path with soft golden light, and the day begins to feel like a story unfolding in calm, steady chapters, each one helping you grow just a little more, one small, simple, steady step at a time. As we leave the peaceful park and step back onto the quiet street that stretches ahead of us, the world feels as if it is slowly changing color, shifting gently from bright afternoon light into the soft, early glow of evening. And the air carries a slightly cooler breath that brushes against our faces, reminding us that the day is moving forward, that time is flowing like a gentle river, steady and calm, and as we walk down the narrow sidewalk, I look around at the buildings rising beside us. Some old, some modern, all touched by the warm gold of the setting sun, and I smile because the city feels more relaxed now, as if it is taking a long, slow breath after the busyness of the day. And I tell you softly that this time of day often brings a different kind of English, a more reflective English, because people move slower, speak softer, think deeper, and as we keep walking, we pass a man standing outside a small bakery, switching the sign on the door from open to closed, and he sighs gently and says to himself, "That's it for today," and I pause for a moment to explain that this simple phrase is used when work is finished, when a task is done, when something is complete. And I repeat it slowly so you can feel the calm finality inside the words, and as we continue walking, I hear a woman on her phone saying, "I'm almost home," and I smile because this small sentence appears often in English. And it's used when someone is close to reaching their destination, and I say it again softly so you can repeat it and feel its natural rhythm in your voice. A little further ahead, We walk past a small corner shop where a young man is sweeping the sidewalk, and as we pass, he looks up with a friendly smile and says, "Good evening," and I explain gently that "good evening" is used after the sun starts to go down. And I invite you to whisper it softly so you can hear the polite and warm tone it carries, different from "good afternoon," but just as friendly. As we continue walking down the quiet street, we see a woman kneeling beside her bicycle, trying to fix the chain, and she looks frustrated as she wipes her hands on a small cloth and says to herself, "Why does this always happen?" And I tell you that this is a very common expression people use when they feel annoyed by something that repeats often, and I say it slowly so you can hear the emotional weight carried by simple words in English, and I remind you gently that emotion in English doesn't need complicated vocabulary. It can be felt through very simple sentences. As we get closer, she looks up at us with a half smile and says, "Do you know anything about bikes?" And I explain to you softly that this is a simple, casual way to ask for help, not too direct, not too formal. And I repeat it gently so you can practice it for your own conversations someday, and I walk over and help her lift the back wheel while she guides the chain back into place, and after a moment it clicks, and she smiles with grateful relief and says, "Thank you. That really helped," and I tell you softly that this is one of the most common ways people express appreciation in daily English, and we wave goodbye to her as she rides away slowly, still smiling. As we continue walking, we turn onto a quieter street, almost empty now, except for a couple sitting on the steps of an apartment building, talking quietly to each other. And I hear one of them say, "I'm trying my best." And I feel something soft and emotional in that sentence, and I tell you gently that these 4 words carry deep human feeling, effort, hope, vulnerability. And I repeat them softly for you because they are part of the emotional side of English that connects people. As we walk past them, the sky above us deepens into soft shades of orange and purple, and the streetlights begin to turn on one by one, glowing with warm yellow circles of light on the ground, and the world feels slower, more peaceful, more thoughtful. And I tell you that walking like this through a city at this hour teaches you another aspect of English, reflective English, the kind people use when they talk about their day, their feelings, their thoughts, their small worries, their quiet hopes. A few minutes later, we pass a man standing at a bus stop, checking his watch, and he says quietly, "I hope the bus comes soon," and I explain to you that people often use "I hope" to express gentle wishes, small desires spoken softly into the air. And I encourage you to say it slowly, letting the word hope feel gentle on your tongue. As we continue walking, we see a woman unlocking her front door, and when it finally opens, she breathes out and says softly, "Home, sweet home," and I laugh lightly because this phrase is used all over the world in English, simple and warm. A way to express relief and comfort when you return to your home, and I say it again slowly so you can hear its soft, melodic tone. As we walk further down the street, the sound of the city becomes calmer and calmer, and the soft light of the sky fades a little more, and I tell you gently that this part of the day feels like a doorway between afternoon and night, a quiet moment that holds everything softly, and it is in these soft moments that English becomes more emotional, more thoughtful, more filled with quiet meaning. A few steps later, we approach a small apartment building with a wooden bench in front, and on the bench sits an older man with a warm smile and gentle eyes, holding a small bag of groceries, and he nods as we walk by and says, "Beautiful evening, isn't it?" And I smile because this simple tag question repeats again, appearing like a friendly heartbeat through our entire journey today, and I remind you gently that everyday English is made of these small, familiar patterns that appear in many places, helping you feel more comfortable as you learn. As we walk past him, he adds, "Enjoy your walk," and I tell you softly that this friendly phrase is a kind way to wish someone well, and I repeat it for you gently so you can learn how to send kindness through simple English. The street becomes even quieter now, with only the soft sound of our footsteps and the distant hum of traffic far away, and the world feels peaceful, still, ready for reflection, and I turn to you and say gently that days like this, days when you listen, observe, repeat, breathe, imagine, help you build a deep connection with English, not in a rushed way, not in a forced way, but in a natural, human way, the way language is meant to grow. As we continue walking, I look ahead and see a soft, warm light glowing from the windows of a small cafe at the end of the street, and I know that inside that cafe, new voices, new sounds, new simple English moments are waiting for us. And I feel ready to enter the next scene of our journey, and I hope you feel ready too, because the story is still flowing, the day is still unfolding, and more gentle English, spoken with calm emotion, is waiting for us just around the corner, ready to guide you through the soft, quiet doorway of evening into the warm embrace of the night. As we step into the small cafe at the end of the quiet street, the warm light immediately wraps around us like a soft blanket, and the smell of coffee, baked bread, and sweet pastries fills the air, making everything feel cozy and calm. And I look at you and say softly, this is the kind of place where English feels comfortable, because cafes like this are full of friendly, slow, natural conversations, perfect for listening, practicing, and feeling the rhythm of real English. And as we walk to a small table near the window, I notice that the chatter inside is soft, polite, and full of short, clear sentences, and I explain gently that listening carefully to people in these moments can teach you how to speak naturally, not loudly or forcefully, but calmly and with meaning. We sit down, and a server approaches with a warm smile, saying, "Hi there, what can I get for you?" And I pause to let you absorb the words, repeating them slowly, and I explain that this is a typical, friendly greeting used in cafes and restaurants, and I answer softly, "Just a tea, please," so you can follow the rhythm and tone of a polite, simple response. As the server walks away, we take a moment to look around, noticing a group of friends sitting nearby, laughing quietly, and one of them says, "Did you see that movie last night?" And I lean closer and explain that this is a common way to start a casual conversation, a question that invites someone to share their experience, and I repeat it slowly so you can imagine yourself using it with friends. Across the table, a woman tells her companion, "I loved it, it was amazing," and I pause to show you how emotion can be expressed with very simple words like loved and amazing. And that feeling in your voice is often more important than complicated vocabulary. A man sitting alone at the counter orders a coffee and says softly, "Make it black, please," and I point out that these short, polite sentences are perfect examples of how daily English is functional, direct, but still kind. And I encourage you to repeat them quietly for practice. As we sip our tea, I look out the window and notice an older couple walking hand in hand along the street, and the woman says, "It's such a beautiful evening," and I explain to you that this is a simple observation turned into a conversational sentence. And it's one of the easiest ways to begin small talk naturally, so I repeat it slowly for you to absorb the rhythm and tone. Inside the cafe, I notice a student studying with a notebook, muttering softly, "I have to finish this assignment," and I tell you that this phrase is common in everyday life, showing responsibility, concern, or focus. And I encourage you to say it gently to feel how natural self-expression sounds in English. Nearby, a couple is quietly discussing plans for the weekend. One saying, "Maybe we could go to the park tomorrow," and I pause to explain that maybe is a soft way to make suggestions, polite and friendly. And I repeat the sentence slowly so you can practice the gentle, tentative tone. Outside the window, the streetlights glow softly, creating long golden reflections on the wet pavement, and the quiet hum of the evening city flows through the glass, mixing with our calm cafe environment. And I tell you that these small details are perfect for practicing descriptive English, simple words, and phrases like soft glow, quiet hum, wet pavement, all of which help you describe the world naturally. A young woman laughs softly at a story her friend tells, saying, "You're kidding me," and I explain that this is a common exclamation used to express surprise, disbelief, or excitement in casual conversation. And I repeat it slowly so you can hear the tone and feel the rhythm. As we continue observing, I encourage you to practice describing what you see quietly in your own mind or out loud, using simple sentences like, "The lights are warm, the street is quiet, the tea is hot." Because even the shortest phrases help your brain connect feelings with words, which is essential for fluency. A child near the counter asks politely, "Can I have some cake, please?" And I smile and explain that adding "please" softens a request and makes it polite, and I repeat it for you slowly so you can use it in any situation. Across the cafe, a man tells his friend softly, "I haven't seen you in a while," and I explain that this phrase is often used to reconnect with someone, to show attention and care, and I invite you to whisper it to feel the natural tone of casual friendliness. The server brings our tea, placing it gently on the table, and says, "Here you go," repeating a phrase we have heard many times today, and I remind you that these repeated phrases build confidence, familiarity, and natural fluency. As we sip the tea slowly, I tell you that observing these small interactions, these gentle conversations, teaches you the most important lesson about English. It is about people, about connection, about listening and responding with kindness, clarity, and calm energy. Outside, the sky darkens slightly, the stars begin to appear, and the soft glow of the streetlights mixes with the warm cafe light, creating a feeling of safety, peace, and comfort. And I tell you that these evening moments are perfect for reflection, for noticing patterns in English, for feeling the music of natural speech inside your body, inside your breath, inside your mind. As we finish our tea, I suggest quietly, let's walk home slowly and notice the sounds of the evening, and we step back into the calm street, where footsteps echo softly, and a gentle wind carries small conversations from open windows, laughter from a nearby apartment, and the hum of the city, reminding us that English is everywhere, in small moments, simple sentences, human connection, and the soft rhythms of life itself. And I tell you softly that today, every moment, from the station to the market, the library, the park, and now the cafe, has shown you how English can feel natural, kind, and human, and that fluency is built in these quiet, simple, gentle steps, practiced again and again, until it becomes a part of your own voice, your own rhythm, your own way of speaking to the world. As we leave the warm cafe behind and step out into the quiet evening, the city feels soft, almost like it is holding its breath, and the air is cooler now, brushing gently against our faces, carrying the faint smells of damp earth, distant food, and the lingering warmth of the day, and I look at you and whisper, "Let's take our time walking home," because walking slowly in English, just noticing sounds, phrases, and feelings is one of the best ways to practice fluency without pressure. And as we step onto the familiar street, I point out the small things, the subtle moments that teach you gentle English. A cat quietly moving across a shadowed doorway, the soft flicker of a streetlight, the the sound of a distant bicycle bell. And I tell you to notice these little details because describing them in your mind or softly out loud helps your English become alive, connected, and natural. As we walk, a man opens the door to his apartment and says softly, "Finally home," and I pause to explain that these short sentences often express relief, comfort, and satisfaction, and I repeat it slowly so you can feel the tone and emotion in your own voice. A few steps ahead, a woman walks her dog and says, "Good night, sweetie," to the little animal, and I show you that simple sentences like this carry warmth, care, and kindness, which are the heart of natural English. As we move along, we pass a small playground where a few children wave at their parents while leaving, and I whisper that in English, "Bye-bye" is commonly used for both children and adults, and the tone you use matters more than the words. So I repeat it softly so you can practice feeling the melody of speech. A couple sits on a bench under a tree, speaking quietly, and I hear the woman say, "I had a good day," and the man replies, "Me too," and I explain that these simple exchanges are the backbone of daily English, small sentences that carry emotion, understanding, and connection, and I ask you to whisper them with me, letting the words feel easy and natural in your mouth. Further down the street, a man takes out his keys, unlocking his door while softly saying, "Home at last," and I tell you that repeating phrases like this helps you see patterns in English, small expressions of comfort that are used by people everywhere, in all kinds of daily life. As we continue, we pass a dimly lit bakery still open for late customers, and a young woman thanks the cashier with, "Thanks so much," and I pause to remind you that simple expressions of gratitude like "thanks" or "thank you" are essential in English, and repeating them softly helps them become natural in your speech. The street is quiet now, except for the soft sound of our footsteps and the gentle hum of distant traffic, and I say softly that this moment, this calm walk, is perfect for reflection, for noticing the rhythm of English in real life, and for practicing how sentences flow naturally without rush. As we approach your home, I point out the small phrases we have heard today. "I'm almost home," "Good evening, could you pass me?" "I'm trying my best," "Home sweet home," and I remind you gently that repetition, observation, and reflection are the foundation of fluency, not speed or memorization, and I repeat each phrase slowly so you can feel them inside your own voice. When we reach the doorstep, I pause and whisper, "You did well today," and I explain that acknowledging your own progress is an important part of learning, because fluency grows not just from listening and speaking, but from noticing and appreciating every small step. As we stand there, I encourage you to take a deep breath, listening to the soft evening sounds, the faint murmur of neighbors, a dog barking in the distance, the rustle of leaves, and I tell you that these quiet moments are perfect for practicing descriptive English, simple sentences, and gentle reflection, and I invite you to whisper to yourself, "The street is quiet, the air is cool, I feel calm," letting these simple statements connect your feelings with words. Finally, as we step inside and close the door behind us, the day's journey settles gently into your memory. Each moment, station, market, library, park, cafe, quiet street, forming a chain of small, connected experiences that have given you not only English sentences, but a feeling, a rhythm, and a confidence that will grow each time you notice, listen, and speak. And I say softly, remember, every step counts, because fluency is built one calm, clear, emotional moment at a time, and today you have taken many of them, quietly, gently, naturally, and beautifully. Thank you so much for joining today's lesson here at Mr. English Lab. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below telling me what you want to learn next. Your support helps the channel grow and helps me create more lessons for you. Take care, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next class.